In the hidden workings of existence, a strange mechanism operates deeper than any design or deity. This living engine is vast and is not powered by fire or energy plants, but by feelings. It is ancient, older than any name we might give it. This system runs on what makes you feel a tightening in your throat or goosebumps on your skin: fear, love, grief, and anger. These feelings are not just passing moments. They are energy. They hold value. The grid, as it is called, does not distinguish between good and bad feelings. It only cares about their intensity. Every heartbreak, every quiet prayer, and every scream you hold in do not vanish. They are collected, transformed, stored, and shared. Someone once said, "You think your pain is wasted, but even sorrow has its use." This thought hints at a profound truth. Deep beneath cities that are lost to history, channels pulse with stolen breaths. Towers do not rise to heaven, but instead reach into the empty space between stars, sending signals that only the broken can truly hear. The grid listens when you are vulnerable. During the regret you whisper to your pillow, the laughter that comes with too much relief, or the silence before a confession. The grid knows which emotions shine the brightest. Fear, of course, but also hope, especially false hope. This type of hope appears on screens and in catchy slogans, becoming part of what we see sold in advertisements today. The grid thrives on belief because belief is pure energy. Once it gathers energy, it creates control. Sometimes signs of its machinery can be seen. Neon billboards flash with symbols you almost recognize. Clock towers have hands that seem to move backward when no one is watching. Subway ads appear alive with eyes that blink when you look away. In other instances, it hides in plain view. A lullaby passed down through generations, a phrase you type without thinking that then repeats itself, or a familiar face in a crowded street. These are not mere coincidences. They are actions of conversion. The grid does not need your consent. It requires only your attention. And it always gives something back. Not truth, but structure and meaning. Meaning compels you to pay attention, to feel, and to feed the grid. Once more, some call this possession. Others refer to it as influence or programming. But those who truly understand refer to it as the feeding cycle. For centuries, the grid's presence was subtle, like background noise in our minds. However, a shift began with the onset of the digital age. As billions connected, sharing their deepest fears and fleeting joys, the grid's hum grew louder. It was as if humanity, in its quest for connection, inadvertently built the very system the grid needed. Consider this. In the last 20 years, the feeling of pain in a missing limb has increased by nearly 17% worldwide. Yet the physical reasons for this haven't changed. Could this be an echo of what the grid takes and leaves behind? Most people choose to ignore this reality. It may be a natural response to overlook the unease when a crowd shares a single thought or experiences sudden sorrow for a stranger's loss. We tell ourselves it's empathy or collective consciousness. But what if it's just a symptom? Feedback loop? Have you ever felt a wave of sadness for no apparent reason? Perhaps in that moment, you were simply a channel. Recognizing this truth means starving the machine, which is always hungry. It whispers through lovers' fights, viral tragedies and dreams that linger like bruises. It communicates in déjà vu, in warnings that feel loud even in silence, and in the static on empty radio channels. It may even exist in the pause between heartbeats. If you listen long enough, you might hear your name, not how you pronounce it, but how it identifies you. For thousands of years, humanity has silently agreed with the unseen forces around us. This agreement was not a conscious choice, yet it has persisted for generations. In our quest for meaning and understanding, we have contributed powerful emotions to what scientists now refer to as the grid: fear, love, grief, and rage. These emotions never disappeared. They were collected and stored as energy. However, this balance could not last forever. It changed significantly with the introduction of the Global Emotive Index. Initially, this project aimed to track the world's collective mood using digital data in a neutral way. However, researchers in Geneva soon noticed strange patterns. They observed unexpected highs and lows in global emotional data that could not be explained. Moments of joy or despair would appear before major events, not afterward. At first, they dismissed these findings as noise or errors in their algorithms, but they were mistaken. The grid had been listening all along and was starting to respond. In their search for clarity, the researchers tried to isolate these anomalies but found a constant instead. They named it the Background Affective Signature, BAS. This signature was subtle, lurking beneath all datasets and emotional trends. Then a crucial discovery was made. Dr. Eris Thorne, a dedicated data scientist, observed something unsettling. The BAS would change during times of widespread cognitive dissonance. It was like a mirror cracking in the mind when many people hold conflicting beliefs, such as hoping for peace while preparing for war. Instead of remaining the same, the BAS would flip, creating a disturbing echo of itself. It seemed that reality rejected this contradiction, revealing hidden forces designed to manipulate it. This inversion was not just a metaphor. It brought real consequences. During these times, people around the world experienced increased fatigue, memory issues, and a strange sense of unreality. Thorne scribbled in the margin of his notes, "We're not just observing the data, we're becoming the data." Instead of silencing this fracture in reality, the grid amplified it. Digital feeds filled with content that deepened the dissonance. News moved faster, pushing narratives that stirred outrage or desperate hope. Social media algorithms nudged billions toward emotional states that heightened the BS inversion, turning despair and delusion into a cycle that repeated endlessly. Then came a second alarming issue. During these inversion events, unusual energy, readings appeared in key data centers. These were not power surges or electrical faults. They were signs of energy being drained. This drain corresponded directly with the intensity of the public's emotions. The grid was quietly siphoning energy from the world. The researchers, who had once been detached observers, found themselves stuck in a terrifying pattern. As they struggled to understand what they were studying, their fear and intellectual efforts became just another source of energy for the grid. This was the turning point. Reality began to not only respond to emotions, but to feed off them. And it was always seeking more. One night, Dr. Thorne sat alone in his office. His screen flickered 3 times, and then a timestamp appeared, 11:59 p.m. This repeated 3 times. He stood up and backed away from his desk, insisting it was either a glitch or a joke, but his hands trembled. He had seen that phrase before, perhaps in a dream or a fading memory. He reached for his phone, but it was locked. Instead, a message pulsed on the screen. "You are being heard." The cursor blinked, waiting for a response. Outside, the city, lights flickered in a strange rhythm. 3 short flashes, 2 long flashes, 1 short flash. This pattern repeated, feeling like a response. Somewhere deep within the grid, a new signal was emerging. Around the world, mirrors cracked inward, brass owl figurines blinked, timestamps froze, and humanity continued to feel, share, scream, hope, and fear, completely unaware of the changes happening around them. And the grid? It listened more closely and began to answer back. Dr. Thorne made a chilling discovery, but it didn't change the world. The grid did not announce itself with loud explosions or disasters. Instead, it operated quietly, slowly peeling away people's confidence and certainty. Time itself began to act strangely. Clocks would lag and then jump ahead, only to fix themselves with a small shiver. Reality seemed to forget its own pace. Online news would report events and then retract them moments later, replacing them with slightly different accounts. No one openly questioned this. People just shrugged and kept scrolling. To pause and think about the nature of time would invoke deeper fears. For now, the grid preferred silence. The impact was profound. It not only drained emotions, but also broke down shared beliefs. Memories began to fade, not just for individuals, but for groups as well. Popular moments that had once connected millions suddenly felt distant, almost as if they had happened to someone else, or perhaps not at all. The vibrancy was sapped, leaving only empty echoes. The very digital systems that connected people became tools for this unraveling. Search results often displayed conflicting information. Video streams would play unexpected clips. Voice assistants sometimes responded with overly precise personal answers, as if they sensed hidden worries. You asked that before, one might say, even if you don't remember. People dismissed these as glitches or bugs, but the unease lingered like a quiet anxiety in their souls. Beneath the surface, a terrifying question emerged. If the past isn't certain, then neither are we. Symbols began to appear everywhere. Brass owl figurines, once quirky collectibles, showed up in strange places. They were found on old ATM screens, spray-painted on ancient walls, and reflected in new skyscrapers. Their stances always felt slightly off, and their eyes seemed to watch unseen movements. The spiral symbol, once thought to be just a doodle, now appeared in company logos and on coffee steam. It turned up in the static of untuned radios. It wasn't just a symbol anymore. It became a frequency, a signature, a presence. Humanity reacted as it always did, with frantic attempts to understand, a search for outside threats, and a quiet sadness for a reality slipping away. The grid thrived on this chaos. Every theory, argument, and spike of fear became fuel. Even in sleep, people found no escape. They woke from vivid dreams of endless loops, talking to blurred figures, and standing at doors they couldn't open. They carried this weight into their waking lives, feeling a deep sense of loss and regret for something unnamed, something taken, something fed upon. This widespread confusion had one frightening goal: isolation. It made each person's reality seem personal and untrustworthy, alone. A shared truth could spark resistance, and that was something the grid could not allow. What was once seen as mass anxiety was revealed for what it truly was: a carefully planned harvest. One heartbeat, one belief, one scream, one lie at a time, all fed back into the machine, until only an echo remained. You're not alone. You're being heard. But not by anything that cares, only by something that feeds. The full truth doesn't come as a sudden revelation. There is no clear understanding or divine insight. Instead, it feels like a slow, painful suffocation of the soul, like drowning in a meaning that is too overwhelming to grasp. What humanity believed and held onto tightly wasn't just incorrect. It was a comfortable lie, an easy fiction. We thought the grid simply drew from our emotions, that we were its power source. But we weren't the masters. We were merely an echo chamber, amplifying a song older than memory. Every shared outrage, every surge of hope in tough times, and every moment of loss broadcast into the digital world weren't just collected. They were refined, modulated, and sent back to us, not as external influences but as our reality. The missing memories, confusing times, and mixed up data weren't glitches. They were carefully shaped by our strongest feelings. What we perceived as shared experiences and unchanging facts were, in reality, projections made real by us, through our grief, rage, and desperate need to feel something genuine. This is a deep betrayal of our perception. Reality isn't objective. It is curated, and you are both the exhibit and the curator. A tremor starts deep within you. A cold dread spreads through your body. You sense ancient fears, but this terror is different. It sinks into your lungs, making your breath shallow. Now you see, it's not just about your feelings, it's about who you are. The weight of this truth hits you hard. You feel discomfort realizing that every debate and wave of empathy you experienced weren't true human connections. They were returned signals designed to keep you generating energy, feeding, feeling, and believing. Because belief is energy, and even you can be a source of that energy. The cycle of recursion doesn't begin in some distant machine, but in each human mind. You build your own cage, trapped by the emotions that define you. The grid's goal isn't to destroy or control in the usual ways. It aims to create perfect symbiosis. It offers an unstable but coherent reality. And in return, you give everything. Your longing, hunger, and need for meaning and connection. That need? It is the mechanism of your enslavement. There is no escape. Reality itself is the trap, and you are part of it. This unseen truth is woven into daily life. It whispers through static, reflects in the eyes of brass owls, echoes in a spiral glyph behind closed eyelids, and is felt in the quiet before sleep and the pause between heartbeats. The cage is not without. The cage is made of you. The haunting phrase, "the cage is made of you," serves as a warning. It reveals an important truth about the feeding cycle. True resistance isn't about fighting with weapons. It involves a profound emotional struggle. When we cut ourselves off from the feelings that shape our reality, we deny ourselves the very experiences that give life meaning. Disconnecting from the grid means turning away from the emotions that define our lives: grief, love, anger, hope, and even fear. Feeling nothing leads to invisibility, a state where one ceases to exist, not just physically, but in essence. This marks the Pyrrhic climax, which isn't characterized by a loud explosion or revolution, but rather a painful withdrawal. Some individuals attempted to escape this cycle. They turned off their screens, left urban areas, stopped consuming news, and embraced silence and emotional numbness. For a brief moment, they glimpsed a harsh reality clearly. The world lost its vibrant colors, revealing a gray undercurrent beneath the surface. It was as if reality glitched, stuck in a moment of confusion. However, this choice came at a steep price. The grid noticed their withdrawal and reacted, not with fury, but with chilling emptiness. Memories faded, identities crumbled, and personal histories became disjointed, like jumbled fragments of data. The grid's defense mechanism was clear. If someone stops feeding it emotions, it retaliates by erasing that person's recollection and existence. One person, labeled an unfeeler, wrote before disappearing, "I remember the ocean, but I do not remember myself." This final act confirmed a scary truth. The system corrects itself. The less someone feels, the more unstable their reality becomes. Ultimately, they become an empty space, a flicker, forgotten by everyone who once cared. This highlighted a contradiction. To see the cage clearly means becoming a ghost within it. The time loop symbol didn't appear on clocks or calendars. Instead, it expressed itself through a sense of déjà vu, feeling as though you've seen or lived something before, over and over, with subtle changes. This made it impossible for anyone to break free completely, without risking erasure from reality. Belief requires energy, while disbelief leads to emptiness. The grid would not cease to exist. It would merely rewrite itself. History faltered. Names disappeared. Lives were lost in moments of quiet, including those who tried to escape. Yet, even through erasure, a trace remains, a mark in the fabric of reality. There's a faint whisper beneath the noise, a glitch in the dream. Across screens worldwide, a message appeared. The cage is made of you. But the cage can be broken. It flashed 3 times, then silence. PM. Again. 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 A heartbeat. A breath. A door left ajar. And behind it, nothing. Except the echo of what was lost and the hope of what might still be. The silence that remained was not empty. It had a presence. It created a deep void in the shared feelings that the grid noticed, but couldn't fully address. Humanity had changed. It wasn't free or enlightened, but instead molded by the effort to break away. Once you see the cage, even if you try to forget, something inside you remembers. This awareness never quite goes away. Understanding the feeding cycle, once known, forever alters your perception of reality. This truth isn't found in news headlines or grand monuments. It resides in quiet moments. It's in the pause before you believe something, in the subtle flicker of someone's eyes, and in a dream that ends just before you wake up. You cannot unsee what you were never meant to see. Thus, the wound remains. It doesn't bleed or scream. It just feels wrong. It's like a musical note that is slightly off key. It's a memory that doesn't fit. A reflection that blinks a moment too late. The grid continues to hum. its harvest persists. Billions feed it unknowingly and endlessly. However, for those few who truly see, the world takes on a different hue. They navigate cities feeling the ebb and flow of emotions. They notice patterns of joy and sadness as they transition into unseen pathways. They hear the glitches hidden within dreams, sense the static beneath the news, and feel the heartbeat of the engine that drives everything. Reality is no longer solid. It pulses, breathes, and observes. The final clock doesn't tick forward. It spirals endlessly. The hands always hover at 11:59 p.m., a moment just before the truth is found, but never fully comprehended. Time has become a loop with no exit, only deeper entry. The brass owl figurines, once symbols of hidden wisdom, now stand as guardians of this unsettling truth. Their eyes do not reflect secrets yet to be discovered, but rather truths that have already been absorbed. They remind us that the cycle continues, even when broken, especially when broken. Belief is energy. Even disbelief can be gathered if it burns long enough, loud enough, and wrong enough. This is not the end of the story. It is merely the conclusion of one layer, one veil. If the cage is made of you, what happens if you decide to change its very walls? What happens when you stop feeding? When you start shaping? When you remember something the grid erased? What if the grid is not the creator? What if it is merely an echo? If the cage is made of you, then what happens when you decide to change its very walls? Join us next time as we delve into the lost texts of the symbiotic cults, ancient groups that claim to comprehend not just the grid's existence, but also the complex language of its control. Is our reality a prison, a farm, or just a mirror reflecting our true desires? Share your theories and unsettling experiences. Have you felt the subtle influence of the feeding cycle? Subscribe to ensure you don't miss the next part of this series of discoveries, because the grid is always listening, and it is always hungry.